time to start talking about some of the people who are on YouTube, who I listen to. You can check them out and take your own decision on them. First off, I was talking about Mike Maloney. I bought his book, To Investing in Gold and Silver. Very interesting book. Most of it is about the history of money. It's not just about gold and silver. It's about how all the empires and countries in the past have failed because they got away from the gold standard, or they basically diluted their gold coins into brass or copper or something in that nature. Just like we're doing with our paper money now. You make so much of it, it just loses its value. And everything else that I pretty much talked about so far as well. And I think he was pretty decent. I think he's a good guy. Of course, he doesn't tell you everything. Only tells you about the positive things of precious metals. And basically, the negative precious metals is you're basically betting against the U.S. debt, the dollar as well. So if the money does great, or say the fiat currency increases in value, or they find a way to get rid of their debt, the gold and silver is not going to be the value as we all hope for. So this is why gold and silver are very precious metals during the critical times of all the empires and countries come to. At the end, they all seem to fail. That's just the way it works. Everybody gets too big, too much spending, and it comes a disaster. And precious metals are there to stand, to take over again, to start over the cycle. Now, he has in his book a thing called, and his buddy here who made a video that a lot of these guys here, Chris Duane, Brother John F., they're all talking about the same stuff about transfer of wealth. And I did a little bit more study. And he saw the video when I first got into precious metals, which got me to brainwash, like a lot of people here on YouTube do have these silver stackers, or I call them nasty silver stackers, who don't want to hear the truth or anything but positivity about their metals, especially the silver. I love silver, love gold, and I believe that it will help you out. Transfer of wealth, forget about it. I'm telling you, I don't believe it 1 cent of that. That is BS, and that's just a sales pitch to get you to believe in it. And I'll show you why, and then you can make your decision and comment whether I'm right or wrong on it. There's a video from Mike Dillard, who did it from his book, who basically either worked for Mike Maloney or really liked him, and he makes videos of what Mike Maloney is talking about. And their transfer of wealth that he was talking about in his video, you can find it here on YouTube under Mike Dillard, that in 1971, if you would have bought $19,000 or $20,000 in silver instead of buying that house in 1971, and then in 1980 you sold your silver when it went to $52.50, which, by the way, 1971, which they don't tell you, the silver was $1.39 an ounce. That was the average price. And then if you would have sold it at the peak of 1980, 9 years later, at $52.50, your $20,000 would have turned into $770,000. If you would have bought the home in 1971, it just doubled in value. So your $20,000 house in 1971 turned into $40,000 in 1980. And if you would have bought the silver instead and sold it in 1980, you could have bought 16 homes with that money. So that's a transfer of wealth that you're talking about. Good. I also asked somebody who lived in those 1970 days, and how many people back then had $19,000 or $20,000 cash in your back pockets to buy that silver. As today's price, which I'm going to mention. And he said a lot more people back in 1971 had $20,000 to spend on that than people today. Now, that was the average price in 1971, was $20,000 for a home. What they don't mention in this transfer of wealth, houses today do not average $20,000 for this transfer of wealth. I looked online, it's $227,000 for the average American home. How many people that are listening to this video have $227,000 in their back pocket to buy 9,458 ounces of silver? That's just about 19 monster boxes. Raise your hand. Don't see anybody raising their hand. This is why the transfer of wealth is going to be very difficult, and it's going to be for very, very few, the wealthy. Okay? So for all those nasty silver stackers out there, I guarantee you none of you have $227,000 to start off with to buy almost $9,500 worth of silver. Okay? But now let's get involved in that. What it would take today for that same transfer of wealth. $227,000 to start. And in 2022, silver would have to be $888 an ounce. And you would have $8,400,000 out of your $227,000. That's a transfer of wealth. Now, if the house is only doubled, or a little bit more than doubled, anywhere $500 or $500,000 each home, that will be the same transfer of wealth. You can still buy about the same 16 homes as you could in the 1971 to the 1980 era. So in 2013 to 2022, that's what you would have to have in the same transfer of wealth, which they never mention how much money you need to start off with now. This is why they trick you. If you do not do your homework on these situations like I did in the beginning, and I did get brainwashed in that. I figured, oh my God, I'm going to buy all these homes in my family, and we're going to be very happy. We live in one and rent out the others, or sell a few here and there, and have a great transfer of wealth. It's a great dream. It's a great idea. But that transfer of wealth is going to be for very few. And it's not going to be for us. We may see some type of wealth from the metals. We should from history anyway. But the transfer of wealth, My meaning of transfer of wealth is turning my precious metals, a hard asset, for another hard asset. When one hard asset goes high in value, usually the other goes lower or undervalued. Okay? So I'm hoping for my precious metals will be overvalued. And then one day the houses will be undervalued, and I trade in my precious metals for a home for my family to live in, paid off, or at least close to paid off. Not dreaming of that 16 home anymore. I realize that ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Forget it, people. It ain't going to happen. What you need to think about is, what are you going to get out of your precious metals? Because forget about the transfer of wealth. As I just showed you the stats. You're going to need over $220,000 to start off with to get this transfer of wealth. Nobody else talked about that in any of the videos on YouTube about what it would take for the transfer of wealth that happened from 1971 to 1980, and what it would have to happen to be today to start off with, and what it would be in 9 years from now for you to have the same transfer of wealth. And here's the best part. They're not talking about it's going to be the same. It's going to be 10 times better or even greater. So what are we talking about? 12, 15, $20 million for your silver? That's if you had $9,500 worth to start off with. But anyway, off that subject of the transfer of wealth, and that's my goal, is to take my hard assets, gold and silver, and turn it into property. Because I believe that is the best investment of mankind. Land. They can't make any more land. Land is here. They can mine gold and silver. They can print money. They can make stocks, break stocks, even break property value. It doesn't matter. It's land, even though you never really own it because there's property tax and there's a lot of other stuff into it. But to me, land is the ultimate investment as long as you don't have it as a liability. If you're making those 30-year mortgage payments, you're done. That's a liability. It's not an asset until something makes you money. That's when it's an asset. So, as I get involved in that, so that's why I do not believe in that transfer of wealth anymore. And I believe my transfer of wealth and us here is basically getting what we can get out of our precious metals and turning it into something else that we enjoy even more. Okay? Chris Dwayne, Brother John F., they're talking about keeping your precious metals at any price. Seriously? Wait for the paradigm shift? Really? Seriously? So all these stories you hear, gold 10,000 and your silver at 1,500, which is wagging everybody's tail, including mine before I realized the real facts. You wouldn't sell your silver coins each for $1,500? Think about that. Even if the dollar's crashing, about to be done, what are you going to do with the silver? Are you going to sell it at that money? And then put that money towards something else quick before it disappears into thin air until they come up with a different currency? So let's think about this for a second. Before you say, no, I'm doing what Chris Dwayne's telling me. I'm keeping my silver. I don't want your money. No. Cash is trash. Bullshit. They're taking your cash for this. If cash is such trash, and precious metals are the only thing of value, why are they taking your cash to give you something that's the only thing of value? Think about that for a second, okay? They're getting rich now, buying their Mercedes-Benz and Mercedes and, all those great fancy cars and homes off our money. And hopefully one day the precious metals will provide us what we're looking for. And people who got into it a few years ago made out a killing. And I listen to this guy Raw Dog all the time, and he made a killing, and he's a very smart guy, and he was like me in the beginning. This is what made me change my mind. He was brainwashed like I was about transfer of wealth and all this stuff is just going to make you rich, and then he woke up and realized silver, since the or I should say when it's hit the $50, the every new high was lower than the one before. It was 50, then when it crashed, it went back up to 42, crashed down, went to 35, and then so forth and so forth. And today, it seems to be fighting to stay at 24. I'm sure it's going to break this mark in a matter of no time, within a year or two, maybe even this spring. If there's a war in Syria, who knows what's going to break this new highs in the precious metals. But they will get there. I highly, truly believe that it will. I don't know how long it's going to take silver to break its all-time high of $50, which, by the way, like I was talking to you before about the transfer of wealth, if you sold your silver in 1980 for $52.50 an ounce, which is another reason why they don't tell you why silver got up that high, and what I really believe what made silver go up that high, it was a fixed price by the Hunt brothers. They were buying up all the silver they possibly can, trying to get all the investors to do the same. Buy up all the silver, and it jacked the price up extremely. Then the government and the Federal Reserve and all those other boys stepped right in, or say the ones who own this world, until the people do something about it. Until then, we will be slaves to them, but that's a whole different video. That's what I believe made silver go to all-time high, that it was the Hunt brothers who cornered the market. What would it take this time for silver to break its new high? Wars? Possibility. Commodities are going back up, as they always should have been, and the way they should be. And anyway, so I just want to point out that part of the video. And paradigm shift ain't gonna happen. Trust me. And here's another part where I want to get